We are here at the Academy Museum of Motion Pictures in Los Angeles, and we're kicking off a tribute to Bruce Lee. And I'm here with actor and martial artist Mark Dacascos.
Thank you, Jacqueline.
Oh, it's an honor to have you here. So let's talk about Bruce Lee, his legacy. And I understand that you have a rather personal connection to Bruce Lee.
I do. I never met him in person, but I am old enough and privileged enough to have seen his movies on the big screen. My father was also, is still a martial artist, as is my mom. They were both teachers. And my father was one of the other kung fu teachers in the Bay Area. When Bruce Lee was teaching, so was my father, and they were both teaching non-Asians martial arts. So the challenges that came up for Bruce Lee also came up for my father. And I am proud to say that Linda Lee, his wife, in her book, The Man Only I Knew, which she wrote in 1975, includes the stories my father told me about he and Bruce. And of course, I'm thinking, well, Dad's a Bruce Lee fan as well. He's just, making this stuff up. But Linda wrote about it.
Wow.
So, there's a real connection between my father and Bruce, between martial arts, and from me just being a devout fan of Bruce Lee and his philosophy and his movies.
Yeah, absolutely. So the documentary we're about to watch, Bruce Lee, the Legend, was released in 1983, and it really walks us through the many phases of his life and career.
Of course, we know his action is phenomenal. But how did it get that way? By training. Mm-hmm. You have to work hard. He talks about if you really want to have a chance at surviving a real fight, you have to train every muscle in your body. What I love about Bruce Lee is that he walks the talk.
That's really powerful. I mean, we know that Bruce Lee brought martial arts to an international audience.
Yes.
But what was the big deal about teaching martial arts to non-Asians?
Well, I'm paraphrasing, but I believe I read that he wrote, "We are all one people under the heavens." So you see his martial arts ability, but you also, in the documentary, you see the people and the athletes and the actors that he worked with, all ethnicities and different styles of martial arts. One of the amazing things, and I'm so grateful for, of Bruce Lee is that he did not preach that Kung Fu is the best, or capoeira, or boxing, or wrestling. From what my understanding and interpretation of his philosophy, it's the person that makes the art. Whether it be grappling, jiu-jitsu, a kick or a punch. It's how you execute it. And what I think is fascinating is that, yes, choreography is very important. And if you look at Bruce's choreography, you can see, and maybe I'm reading too much into this, I don't know, but he affects me. You can see his life and his philosophy in the martial arts, in his choreography. He uses jiu-jitsu moves and kicks and punches and throws. And then he worked in his movies with Hapkido people and different karate styles and different kung fu styles. I think what makes him so different is that he found his own way. If you look at the martial arts prior to Bruce Lee, at least in movies, very beautiful. But most of the hand strikes were pop, they'd lock it out, pop, so that somebody could block it or move it. And you see Bruce, he did some of those, but the other times, boom, he'd snap. And the block or parry would be useless because he hits and brings his hand back before you even see it. So I think he opened up martial arts cinema for us. He was an actor, a martial artist, a philosopher, a teacher, an athlete, a dancer, and we see all that. And then we get to appreciate it and enjoy it when he brings it to the screens.
That's right, yes. Well, this documentary gives us a sense of that whole range of things that made him into the person that he was. So let's take a look. Thank you, Mark.
Thank you, Jacqueline.
Here is Bruce Lee, the Legend. Back with me here at the Academy Museum to talk about the legacy of Bruce Lee, I am with actor and martial artist Mark Dacascos.
Thank you, Jacqueline.
I would love to hear your reflections on Bruce Lee's philosophy. This documentary touches on it a bit, but there's so much more to say.
I really feel that he put his philosophy and his way of life in his martial arts, the way he moved, how he looked at all martial arts, not just the Chinese or the Japanese, but just all Korean, Western boxing, all these different things. And if it worked in the fight, he would use it. And I love that because there was no prejudice. I feel that Bruce Lee was political in his movement because he was open to others. My feeling is that humility that he had gave him insight into different cultures and fighting arts and philosophies that he then distilled in his own way and then showed us on screen. And what's amazing, you see the documentary, and this is a time before social media and internet. You saw all the fans, how many people's lives he touched all over the world.
Yes, the outpouring.
The outpouring.
Yeah.
He touched people's hearts. And we ask why. For me, it's because of his philosophy and his way of life, which was expressed and embodied through his martial arts. And you see how emotional he is. What he talks about, the emotional content in his eyes, in his expressions, and you feel how grounded he is.
Yeah, absolutely. When this museum opened, we had an exhibit focused on Bruce Lee, and you could see some of his writing.
Yes.
I don't know that people recognize that he was a writer.
Oh, fantastic writer. I would argue as good, if not better writer than martial artist. And that's crazy because he's extraordinary. But for fans that really want to get, I think, a deeper understanding of Bruce Lee, I would recommend 3 different books. One called The Tao of Jeet Kune Do, which Linda Lee compiled of Bruce Lee's writings over his lifetime and put it into a book, The Way of Jeet Kune Do, Bruce Lee's style. And you see his anecdotes and his philosophies and techniques, and you get an idea of what he feels about martial arts and life. Then another book written by Linda Lee titled The Man Only I Knew. It was published in 1975, a couple of years after Bruce's death. And so you get her perspective of Bruce Lee. And then a brilliant book that was published just a couple of years ago titled Be Water, My Friend, and written by Shannon Lee, Bruce's daughter. It's a wonderful understanding of how you take Bruce Lee's martial arts and philosophy and apply it to your day-to-day life.
Yes. Well, this grounding is so important, I think, for us now to look at the films that he made across his career. Thank you so much, Mark.
Thank you, Jacqueline.
So coming up next, we have the martial arts feature that put Bruce Lee on the map.